Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we'll be making a 360-degree peplum flare. So I cut out a piece of fabric that I'll be using for my flare, and I folded it into two, so this side is open while this side is on a fold. And the length of the fabric is 43 inches, while the width on a fold is 22 inches. You can definitely go for a length and width smaller than this, but I don't really mind because I'll be using the excess to create my scarf. So now I'm going to be folding the fabric again for a second time along the width like this, and I'll be working on this corner here that has a fold on either end. So make sure the corner you're working on is folded on either sides and that it doesn't have any raw edges. Now, because this is a 360-degree flare, the measurement I'll be taking is my waist circumference divided by 6.28. Now this 6.28 is the standard to get your radius when cutting out a 360-degree flare. So my waist circumference is 34 inches. When I divided that by 6.28, I got 5.4 inches. And I'm just going to be adding 1 inch to that for allowance, because the top I'm making is a crisscross and I want 1 inch allowance. So if the top you're making has a zipper, go ahead and add your zipper allowance to what you got from the calculation. Now you can stop here if you don't want any pleats on your peplum flare, but if you want pleats on your flare, then you can add an extra 4 to 8 inches of allowance depending on how full you want the pleats to be. But I don't want any pleats on mine, so the 1 inch allowance is all I'll be adding. So yeah, that's it. So from the edge of my fabric, I'll be marking 6.5 inches downwards. I just rounded it up to 6.5 instead of 6.4. So I'm just marking 6.5 all the way from that point right there. And I'm going to keep marking until I form a curve like this. And when I'm all done, I'll be bringing in my curve ruler to connect all the points together. And then I'll move on to decide how long I want my peplum flare to be. Now for the length of the peplum, I'll be going for 9 inches because I want the length of my top to be 24 inches. And I already cut out the top half of my blouse using 15 inches for the length. So adding 9 inches to that will give me 24. So from the curve mark, I'll be going down by 9 inches, and I'm going to be marking that all the way until I get to the other end. And I'm following the shape of the first curve, marking all the way till I get to that end. And when I'm done marking again, I'll be bringing in my curved ruler to connect all the points together. And when I'm all done, I'll be adding half an inch to the top part of the curve for joining. And I'll also be adding half an inch to the bottom part that will be used to turn the lining. When I'm done marking all that, I'll go in with my scissors to cut along the lines. I'll first go ahead and cut out the top part, then I'll cut out the bottom part, and this is what we have. Now, when I open it up, this is what it looks like. So I'll go ahead and place this on top of my lining so I can cut out the lining piece for this. So I've placed my fabric on the lining piece. This part is on the fold while the other side is open. And I'll go ahead to cut out the lining piece following the shape of the main fabric. Be sure to pin this down before cutting so that it doesn't move and your lining piece doesn't come up short. So yeah, here are my two pieces that I'll be using to create the peplum flare. Now I'll go ahead and fuse some interfacing to the wrong side of the main fabric and to the wrong side of the lining as well. So here's what we have. I added the interfacing to the main fabric and to the lining. So right now it's still a complete circle, so I'll go in with my scissors to slash open one side. I'll do that for the main fabric and for the lining piece as well, and then we can start stitching. Now in order to stitch this together, I'll be placing the right side of the fabric to the right side of the lining like this. Do your best to align them together so they are exactly the same. Then go ahead and pin it down so it doesn't move. Then you can stitch them together following the shape of the bigger curve. But because I want my peplum to stand firm, I'm going to be adding a 2-inch wide crinoline to this. So I'll be placing the crinoline on top of the lining piece like this before I go ahead to stitch all around. Now, because of the sharp edge of the crinoline, first I'll cover it up with a small piece of fabric. I'll be covering up like this, then I'll go on to stitch it down so it stays in place. And like I said, after doing that, I'll be placing the crinoline on top of the lining piece and I'll be stitching all around the bigger circle. So I'm going to be using a 1/2 inch stitching allowance for this, which is the allowance I gave when cutting out the peplum flare. So just take your time and stitch all the way from one end, and when you get to the other end, go ahead and cut off the excess crinoline and cover it up with a piece of fabric like you did before, and then finish stitching. Now after attaching the crinoline to the bottom of the flare, I'll go on to make a top stitch on the lining fabric. Now, when doing this, make sure to push aside the excess seam allowance towards the lining piece before you go ahead to create the top stitch. It's going to be a bit thick because of the crinoline, so just be patient and keep pushing the excess allowance towards the lining piece and go ahead and make your top stitch from one end to another. So after doing that, here's what we have. I'm going to be giving this a good press, and then I'll go on to cover up this raw edge here by placing the lining to the main fabric together like this, right sides facing each other, and I'll just go on to stitch it close using a 1/2 inch sewing allowance, and I'll do the same for the other side as well. So yeah, now I've stitched up the sides and turned it over towards the right side. I've also given this a good press, and this is what we have. So now all I have to do is attach this to the top part of my blouse, and that will be all. Now here's a finished look after attaching the peplum to the blouse. You can see how the crinoline made the peplum stand firm, and I'm also happy about the length. So we've come to the end of this tutorial. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you have any questions on this, let me know in the comment section below, and I'll be seeing you in the next one.